podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Shelby. I have to start today's episode with a story. It literally just happened 20 minutes ago.
Your face is so excited. I can't wait.
It was the funniest thing. I already texted you about it. I've already texted my husband about it. I already Marco Polo'd my best friends about it. Like, the funniest thing happened. So, okay. I have a 17-month-old. My daughter. Light of my life. Child is so much smarter than me.
Yeah, it's real.
It is.
It's very real. They're all
terrifying.
smarter than us.
And I got to see it in action. And if I had not been watching the monitor, it would have been a very different story with a very different vibes. So basically, we're in a little bit of a sleep war. My best friends and I refer to sleep. Yeah, my best friends and I refer to sleep as Fight Club. Like, you don't talk about Fight Club because, you know, as soon as you say like, oh my gosh, so-and-so has slept through the night all week. No.
Oh yeah.
Never sleeping again.
Nope.
It's over. So we don't talk about Fight Club and it doesn't happen. But this is not about Fight Club. This is about my child being smarter than I am. So we have been on the struggle sleep bus. It's like that bus in Harry Potter.
The night bus?
Yes, it's like the night bus, but worse.
And that's pretty bad because that had little shrunken heads on it. So, I mean, it was a pretty bad bus.
I feel like my head shrinks every night trying to do nighttime. So basically, we do the whole routine. For the last couple weeks, it's been like this. And the worst part is that, like, you'd think, oh my gosh, we need to change what we're doing. And then one night it'll work. And she'll go to bed. And she'll sleep fine. And it's no big deal.
Really?
And it's wild. But so basically, we do the whole routine. And she's fine. She's happy. We offer as many choices as possible. We, do you want mama to rock you or dad to rock you? We sing her favorite songs. We do her stories. She gets choices in all the songs. She gets choices in all the stories. She even turns Spotify on. Like, this whole thing. We give as much power as we can because that's what all the books say to do, to make bedtime less of a battle. But as soon as we lay this child down, she can be giggling and laughing. And as soon as we lay her down and we say goodnight and go back out of the room, stands up, yelling at us. Yeah. Sometimes she's crying when she's upset, and we don't do cry it out, and so that's a big no. But sometimes she's just like, no, you know what I mean?
It's only fun if you guys are here.
One night last week, as we were backing out of the room, we closed the door. She wasn't crying. She did, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, the protest.
And by the time we got to the kitchen and turned on the monitor, she had laid down. She wiggled a little bit. She thumped her feet against the crib, and then she went to sleep. Okay, so that was the night before. That was the ground we were starting from. Which is next night,
very, very cautiously good ground.
Right? You don't talk about Fight Club, but if you did, it would have been a positive report.
Exactly.
So the next night, very similar vibes. However, she's still protesting by the time I get the monitor on. And my husband and I are standing there getting ready to do our cleanup duties and all the things that we do, which we're actually going to be taking care of. We're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. But we're doing all those things. And we look over right about the time that her pacifier, and she is a passy girl, okay?
Yeah, she loves her friend.
Right about the time that her passy falls out of her mouth while she is like fake protesting.
Oh.
And it goes straight hysterical. Passy! Drop Passy! Passy! Drop Passy!
Like,
Mama!
I was mad, but I didn't mean to do this.
Exactly. And so my husband and I both look at each other and I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, that's not going to work. She's going to be hysterical. She's not going to calm back down. It's not going to be a thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go in. I'm going to give her the Passy. We're going to figure this out.
Oh, no.
Reader. It did not work.
I see where this is going.
So I go in.
I only see
and
where
I
this is going.
I go in and I say, oh no, you dropped your Passy. And I get the Passy. I hand it back to her. I kiss her on the forehead. And then I go to back out of the room.
Oh,
and she says, Mama, rock.
Oh, heartbreaking.
It starts to cry. And so, of course, I pick her up and I soothe her and I rock her. And if you are listening to this and you are cried out or you are judging me for this, then, mind your own business. I'm sure there's things you do I would judge you. But anyway,
what you do in the middle of the night is not allowed to be judged. Nobody else judges adults what they do in the middle of the night. Leave my kid alone.
I rock her. I lay her down. She goes to sleep. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. We are moving forward with our life. We do the closing duties. We move on. It is now like 4 or 5 days later. Okay. Today, I lay her down for her nap. And I'm getting ready to get on here to record the podcast. I'm cleaning up the kitchen because she and I made some delicious blueberry muffins today. This morning, we had so much fun baking together. I'm watching the monitor, and I watch this child laying in her bed take her passy out of her mouth and scream, "Drop passy! Drop passy!" And then put it back in her mouth and look toward the door. What in the cause and effect is that? She was laying there thinking, like, I don't want to be here. How could I get mom in here? She's a freaking genius.
She is. That is brilliant. I'll never forget my stepson. So my youngest never took a passy, and it was actually very devastating for me because I did love those little moments of like, here, take this thing and go away from me. But my stepson was a big passy man for quite a while, and I will never forget the day that he figured out he could throw his passy out of his bed and we would come and get it for him. And I thought that's where this story was going. But again, like, your daughter proves that
she straight up put it back in her mouth while she was waiting for me.
She can game the system.
Yeah.
And I can't wait until she realizes, because now I've had this situation with like my stepson. We have baby monitors, and because I have mobility issues and can't go up and down the stairs, we do still have a baby monitor, like a visual, like a little camera one in his room that we only have on at night, so I can monitor if something's going on and see if I need to actually get up there or if I can talk to him through the baby monitor, if I can send someone else, blah blah blah. And I'll never forget, he was like 4 years old the first time he looked at the baby monitor and yelled, "Cole, come here!" And I was like, What's
funny is she's probably like, I don't know, 45 minutes from discovering that there's a baby monitor in there. I was about to say,
she's on her way to being able to look at square in the camera and be like, "Get in here now."
I could not believe it. And if I hadn't had the monitor on and seen it, I would have been like sighing and like, oh my gosh, she can't take that nap without that passy. Now I'm going to have to go in there, which means I'm probably going to end up rocking her, which means nap time's going to start like 30 minutes later. Like, it would have been a whole thing. But instead, I saw she had the passy, and I basically just went, "Nah, dude." And I just waited it out.
Yeah. Did she do it again? Did she try again? No, she just
did it once. Time. She just wanted to see if it worked.
Okay, that is so. I love the idea that I probably would have been distracted enough to like go running in there.
Oh, and reinforce that it works.
And then I would have reinforced that it works, and then I probably would have been really, really pissed off. Like, I'd have been like, no, because now that was something we went through this time last year when my son was just newly a year old. He figured out that if he took his diaper off during nap time, I would go running in there.
Oh.
Yeah. And I mean, it was never like, he doesn't really like, well, I mean, I change it so it's a clean diaper before he goes to nap, but it's, it's the middle of the summer. And so a lot of times I would let him just go, like, instead of redressing him in his clothes that he'd probably been outside in, blah, blah, blah. I would just let him lay down in a diaper or a pair of shorts with a diaper. And we had to stop doing that because he would take his diaper off and then I would go running in there.
Right. It works like, well.
Dang it.
What's funny is my daughter probably would have thought that the reason you came running in was the sound of the diaper. And so then she would just be laying there just ripping it open and shutting it, and ripping it open and shutting it.
At least she knows that she can shut it back. My son gets it open and then he's like, "Oh no, diaper." I'm like, "Can you just put it back?"
I just love that she basically tried to Pavlov dogs me.
Yeah, the ingenuity there of like, wait, is this Like, what happens if I love that. Your daughter is so, but we talked about this before. Like, your daughter is so how do things work focused. Like,
Mhm.
my son is really interested in like social things, like my youngest. He's very interested in social things. He's very interested in like words and how people talk. And you'll hear him like if he meets somebody who says things that he's never heard before, he'll like kind of quote it back to himself, like, what is this? Um, but like your daughter is like, how do I figure out how to make things happen?
Oh, I mean, at this point, I just hope we make it to kindergarten before she takes my microwave apart.
Oh,
Like,
real.
so into cause and effect and how does this work and what can I do? And it was so funny.
Yeah.
But I
Oh
just,
my goodness.
one, I thought that was like the most relatable story ever.
Oh
Two,
yeah.
it's proof that sometimes it does feel like they're trying to manipulate you, but really they're just running science experiments on you against
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
permission.
you're an unwilling participant in the science experiment.
Because
100%.
she's not trying to manipulate me. She just wanted to know what happened.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
hey, a follow-up on last week's episode about pets. We have we moved the chicken out of our house, thank goodness. But now we have a chicken who's trying to brood, and that can be really dangerous because they overheat in the summertime. Plus the eggs are never gonna hatch, so it's a little fruitless. So I have been having to like take her out of the coop and cool her down because your body gets so much hotter, or their your body. Are there any chickens listening? um Chicken bodies get so much hotter to like warm the eggs like an incubator. So I thought it was a really funny like watching my son today with the chicken outside of the coop. He was sitting there pulling just very gently as like he was testing different amounts of pull to see which ones made her balk of
oh,
like he was like, okay, I can pull a little bit. Oh no, don't pull that far. Don't like, and he would go around different parts of her body, and he wasn't hurting her, so I was like kind of letting it
it's
go
all fun and
on.
games. So he does that to a goose.
Exactly. Yes, that's actually very real. But it was so funny because then he got to like her actual face and he like reached towards her beak and she opened chickens will kind of like open their beaks and like kind of hiss at you almost like a goose, but they don't actually make noise. Um, and he looked that chicken dead in the eyes and then goes, "All done," and walked away.
You know
And
what?
I was like,
Science experiment over,
that's
actually.
exactly. I was like, and
Thank you for
science
your
class,
participation at this
sci-
time.
science class has ended. Moving on.
So, you know, I just remembered there's clothes in the dryer and just beeline out of there.
Exactly. Goodbye, goodbye, chicken. Have a good day.
That's amazing. That's amazing. The science experiments they run on us.
So
Um,
you're in,
actually, science experiments kind of segues into what I wanted to talk about today.
yeah, which is I'm very excited about because for
The
one,
great
I know,
load bearing wall.
yeah, which is really interesting because I don't like I've heard so much about mental load and I've actually enjoyed like getting to know how it all works and the difference between emotional labor and mental load. But when you mentioned this, I had never heard of it. And all I could think about was the fact that we have a load bearing wall like in our basement, which is where I'm currently sitting. And I think it's the funniest wall in the world because it goes out to the middle of the basement and then just stops like it was supposed to be a room, but it's not. And so now whenever you say load bearing wall at all, that's the that's the wall I think of because I'm just like, buddy out here holding the whole house up just in the middle of the house.
Yeah, that wall's doing the mostest.
It is.
That's so funny. I'd
So,
love to look at the blueprint of your house and find out exactly why that particular wall was needed.
well, it's underneath
Um,
both staircases. It's like it's
okay.
the basement underneath, but oh, I just smacked my mic. I apologize to everyone's ears. But yeah, no, so I'm very excited about this mental load bearing wall thingies. Or
So
just
first of
load
all,
bearing
let's
wall.
kind of back it out. So mental load. The conversation around mental load is basically usually about how uneven mental load is within households. And primarily the conversation, at least in America, is that women or the caregiver, the primary caregiver,
Yeah.
may
Very,
end up
very
with a
rarely even.
heavier mental load. It's
Yeah.
uneven.
Yeah.
Um, that can obviously swing the other way. We acknowledge the the existence of single parents. We acknowledge the existence of unequal co-parenting relationships. We acknowledge the existence of, you know, stay-at-home dads, all these things. But the conversation usually revolves around how uneven mental load, meaning the management and running of a household, we're
Yeah.
talking food, uh,
The details.
clothes, the things that keep the cogs in the machine, like all
Yeah.
of these things tend to fall unevenly in distribution.
Yeah.
And when
And
we're
for the
talking
purpose
about
of this
load bearing walls,
conversation.
that's a construction term.
Exactly. So that's why I'm curious how they go together, because for the purpose of this conversation, we're both mothers, so we experience mental load typically on our end. And your household works really hard. You have all of your mental load on the side of the wall. You literally
So,
have a
yeah,
mental load
so
wall.
we, especially even before my daughter was born, but especially since my daughter was born, my husband and I started to notice that uneven distribution. And the thing is like adding parenthood to the titles in your life adds a heavy load because children are not self-sufficient. They
Nope.
can't just, you mind your biz, they mind their biz, husband minds his biz. Like no, there's an entire person's worth of
You
work,
can't be
sometimes
roommates.
so much more.
Yeah.
And so you just cannot work, you can't function the same as you did before. Now, having a dog, having a fairly equal partnership, different stuff like that. Like we had a pretty even split to start
When you were
because
dating.
we've
I love that term. I just
yeah,
learned that term, double
when we were
income, no kids.
double income, no kids, dink
Dink.
life, which was the best life. If you're listening to this and you are double income, no kids, you have peaked. That's it. Like you may feel more self-satisfied when you
So,
have children, you may love it, but if you are living the dink life, you have won.
which I've never lived. I don't know if you've
Oh,
thought
that
about that,
sucks.
but I have never lived that because I went from single, alone in a house, or alone in an apartment with a cat and a hedgehog, to, well, there was like a hop, skip, and a jump where we either had my stepson and my partner with me, or we had Rory and my partner. And so it's like like we just hop, skipped, and jumped straight into. Rory always says it's a just add water family. But like
Fair.
when I learned the term dink, which was very recently, I was like, wow, I've never lived that life. But
Well,
maybe I will when my children are all out of the house and we're we're, we're living that way.
probably. That's probably going to be where you really,
I'll
really
get
get to
I'll
dig
get
into the
there
freedom of
then.
that. But like when we think of double income no kids, it's also really easy to think of like how easily split the mental load of the household is because
I bet.
that's when you hear people say like, well, I do all the cooking but he does all the dishes. I do all the laundry but he cleans the bathrooms. Like those kinds of vibes.
Yeah, the very clean cut boundaries. Clean,
And then
clean.
on some random Sunday afternoon, all the meal planning gets done together, or somebody does grocery shopping and somebody goes to Lowe's, or some random yard work pops up, but then somebody else mends that shirt or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's not the case when you are sleep deprived, constantly busy, working multiple jobs in the household, and an entire person must be kept alive.
Yep.
It
Or
just
in
doesn't
my
work
case,
that way,
multiple tiny people.
right? So when we're talking about like that shift happens super unevenly. And basically, from the research I have done, the podcast I've listened to, or whatever, a huge way to combat that is making the invisible load visible. And this has worked well for us, hence the load bearing wall. So rather than my husband and I becoming one of those couples that like if I ask him to do it, he does it without grumbling, and that's wonderful. If that works for you, that works for you. But I don't always have the ability to ask
Well,
for
and
what I need,
asking
especially
is mental load. Having to remember
right.
that a task needs to be done and then asking for it can be just as exhausting as like, ugh, I'll just do
It
it.
can be, but some people, that's their solution. Like, and it works for them.
Yeah.
But I struggled with postpartum depression. I I literally couldn't vocalize what I needed sometimes. And we have always considered ourselves a see it, do it household, which is a very specific type of like mental load operating partnership where like if you see something that needs to be done, you do it. Guess what? When there's a child, there's always something that you see. There is always something to be done. And so you may be able to like float through the basics. You may be able to survive with a see it, do it mentality, but there will be things that are not seen and things that are not done.
I was about to
So,
say that wouldn't, I immediately think that wouldn't work in my household because there are so many things that are unseen that need to be done.
right? Because,
And
like,
as
at that point, does the window not get washed until it gets broken? You know what
well,
I mean? Like,
or has their, I do, this is awful, but like anybody who has a kid over the age of toddlerhood will understand like sometimes your kids are sneakier than they may mean to be. So like I was out of the room. I went to take a shower. My husband was watching the two tiny um lovable demons that live in my house sometimes and their little chaos took over and they found a toilet paper roll that my husband had on the coffee table because he had the sniffles and was using it to like blow his nose, and I came out and I just went straight to cooking lunch, wasn't paying any attention, and happened to hear the noise of, oh yeah, I guess maybe we should throw some of this away. And I was like, that sounds suspicious.
mm,
And I rounded the corner, and I'll have to send you a picture of it because it was genuinely hilarious. But they're sitting there very happily tearing pieces of toilet paper on the couch. They see nothing wrong with it. They don't
vibes.
they don't see anything wrong with it. My husband is in the office working. Rory was off at their job, um, doing what they needed to be done. And I was showering. And at that point, it wasn't a this is your job or this is your job or this is your job thing. It was just a, oh, wow, I happen to be the first person to come across this. Is this really my job?
Well, that's where mental load, there's a whole other conversation about being the person who's constantly putting out the fires and you never actually get to mental load because you're constantly putting out fires
Oh, wow.
like that.
Now we need to go down that rabbit hole another day.
I don't know if we can get to that right now
I
because
am my household's firefighter.
there's a whole level of firefighting that I mean like none of what I'm about to say is going to apply to you if you have sick kids or kids who aren't sleeping or um the absolute chaos of a trip coming up or any weird out of routine
Yeah.
situation. And I say
Those,
routine very loosely because as we know, our children wake up new people every single day.
yeah.
So
Well,
there's not routine.
and I would
But
say like the transition from like your school age children being off for the summer, like
oh,
that's a whole new level of transition to a new routine.
definitely
I
going to
did
take
not
some
know
time. Like
existed.
you having Rory come home from college and a school age child home for the summer, like that's going to require a transition period that I don't think this would work for.
I don't
But
I don't think
on a
we've
random
transitioned
week,
yet.
we find that the load bearing wall helps make the invisible visible and get things done while also freeing up the brain. So here's what's on my load bearing wall. It's in my pantry. This tiny patch of wall is about 2.5 feet wide and it keeps me sane. Um, a lot of people I feel like call it a command station, but that's not what ours is. So there is a tablet on it that is hooked to our family calendar. If you don't have a family calendar, how are you still alive? I don't know. Um,
Real, very real. We even just made Rory put their work schedule on there so that we can stop
yeah.
wondering, like, I don't know, when is Rory
Are
going
you
to
at
be
the
home?
library or are you at work or are you asleep upstairs? We don't know. Tell us on the calendar. That would
Please
be thank
inform us.
you. Great.
Yes, 100%.
I mean, everything is on my calendar. I even add certain appointments for like dentist appointment, and then I'll add one underneath it that says need childcare. And if the childcare is that she's going with me to the dentist appointment, I will write that.
Yeah.
Childcare, going to the dentist with tablet. Hope to download episodes of Bluey before I go. Like that's the vibe
Oh,
because
for real.
I'm not going to think about it the night before and think, what the heck am I going to do? I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. I already thought about that once. I'm not thinking about it again. And that is the motto of the mental load. You think about things once. So that tablet is on there. It's a life changer. It also, the tablet runs the program that runs our little robotic vacuum cleaner, but that's because my husband wants to live in a smart house really bad. So there's a program on there that does a lot of automated things.
Our poor little not branded Roomba hasn't been able to run since my infant was born because the floor is not Roomba approved. We're working on it. Our goal is like by September to have both kids good at like picking everything up so that we can actually use our little robot vacuum again after 2 years. Woo whoop.
See, if you start following the mental load wall, you can run it at night like we do. So on the mental load wall, there's the tablet with the calendar, with the Roomba, with something else, some other programming things that my husband does. And I say that as somebody with an engineer and a very high technical level of understanding, but there are some things I'm not required to think about, and I don't think about them.
Well,
So,
and I'm just going to tell you right now, there is a difference between being an educated, informed adult and knowing what your partner's doing with their weird little technology things.
hobbies. I'm not required to understand your hobbies. I'm required to appreciate your hobbies and love you through them, but I do not need to understand. Thank you.
My husband is building an airplane. Do you think I understand anything having to do with that? No. But do you think when he goes, "This is a wing," I clap? Yes, 100%. Congratulations,
Done.
honey. You built an airplane wing. Good job.
That's real. My husband knows that I enjoy reading. He also knows that he did not need to push back today when I told him that one of my favorite authors dropped the next book in the series and it hit my Kindle at like 8 a.m. this morning, and he needs to figure out some plans for after bedtime tonight because he's not hanging out with me. I will be in bed reading things.
We are not speaking. Goodbye.
For real, And so anyway, so that's what's there. Another thing it has is my daily must do's in order to keep everyone alive and running. And I do not do them by hours because who has time for that? We have
who knows what their hours look like?
We have morning before work is over and after work. Now, when I was working, that before work is over is things that I would do like on lunch break or right after I got home. And then the evening is after bedtime. These things include vital tasks such as feed the dog. There is one in the afternoon. I have a actual checkbox because there are expo markers and I checkbox things. There's an actual checkbox for have you and Little been outside today?
Go get
because
sunlight
if you don't make plans to go outside, there are days where you won't go outside.
That's so real.
And you can't just go from your house to the garage, to the grocery store, back to the garage and back and consider that your children actually getting time outside or consider that you getting vitamin D. You can't. You need to, if you haven't been outside by 2 p.m. every day, you need to stop and think, what is my plan for us seeing the outside today? And that's the thing is like, and eventually you do it long enough. I've been doing this for like 8 months that I don't even have to like consciously look at the list some days and check things off, but it's nice. And what's really nice is it's not my list. It's the family list.
Oh, nice.
So if my husband goes into the pantry to get a snack, it's right next to the list that says, has Little been outside today?
And
so you grab your crackers and then you go to the fridge and you get her water bottle and then you take her outside and you eat your snack time outside because has she been outside today? No. Whose responsibility is that? Everyone's. Go. You know what I mean? So there's the daily. The daily saves us. The daily helps us with a routine. The daily also helps with mom guilt because it's minimal. It's minimal. Is everyone dressed? Did they go from one pair of pajamas to another pair of pajamas? Who cares? The list didn't say, are they wearing real clothes? It
Dressed.
said, are they dressed?
Yep. We do that.
Is dog fed? Was dog fed by 7 a.m.? Probably not. Was dog fed before dog fell over of absolute starvation? Absolutely.
Done.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it doable. There is no point in having a to-do list
So,
that you can't do.
do you have, so when you say doable, do you have like an even more minimalized version for like extreme sickness? Like, let's say you and your daughter both woke up. So, because like last week I had strep. And so, like, my to do list really just slid into nothing. And
There is no doing this in times of crisis.
okay, see, so
You
I
do not
love that.
worry. You do
I
not worry
love
about it.
that.
You might look at it and say, would any of these things make me feel better? I am one of those people that even when I'm sick, I can't not do things, you know? And so in some ways it helps me frame my day for like what kind of day am I used to? These are the things I'm used to. Let me just try to do these
Yeah.
things. But also it's not just about you. Like you are in control of your household and everybody needs a down day. I saw something the other day that on TikTok that said that this woman was she's like sometimes I put my daughter in a t-shirt that's like 3 sizes bigger than she wears because sometimes you just need a slouchy t-shirt day. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
And
that
you don't
is
need
so
pants.
true. And I think
It's
people
so
forget
real.
about that. Like sometimes you need a day to look at your to-do list and say, I can't.
Yeah.
But in regular seasons of life, this can be really helpful because everybody in the household has a to-do list. I don't feed the dog anymore. My 17-month-old daughter does it.
Yeah, we were doing great with my youngest being in charge of feeding the cats, and then he wanted to share, well, that's not true. His older brother wanted to share the task, and now we realized that the cats didn't get fed last night. And we're like,
Yikes.
okay, diffusion of responsibility does not work with
See,
a
if you had an
6 year
expo
old.
marker, maybe you would have noticed there wasn't a dot.
Oh man, yeah, we
But
need to.
also on the list are the is a task that says check weekly task of the day and check monthly task list.
Ooh, what's on your
So
monthly task
when
list?
we went through this process, and I say we because my husband and I did it together, and I think that's key.
Yeah, well, I don't see how you could do it and it be cohesive if your other household members don't participate.
Well, yeah, because and part of that's the whole fair play situation where you look at everything that needs to be done and who's going to do what and how it's attainable and how often it needs to be done and that kind of thing. Part of that is just dumping the whole mental load on on the coffee table and divvying it up, you know?
Yeah.
And that is so big. And sometimes that step is all people need. They don't need a mental load bearing wall. We need a mental
Yeah.
load bearing wall. But
I'm sitting here
it
thinking,
works for
and
us.
I know that there's other people because I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, I don't know that we have time to even do that part. Like
Oh, it took us 3
sometimes
weeks.
I was about to say, like, sometimes it is so crazy around here that I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, well, I would need to plan it on a day where Rory has the day off, and then I would need to plan it around all of the meal times and nap time and bedtime. And I would need to like fit it into this stuff. And oh, what if someone's had a bad day and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very funny to imagine um, just sitting here thinking of how, like, you're right. Like, it would have to take
So
several weeks, and I
it's
don't
sat
think that's so
in
intentional.
it's sat in Canva for 3 weeks, while we slowly built it together. And what that looked like was if something needed to be done in 3 weeks, we put it on the list.
There
If you
you
came
go.
across something that needed to be done, you put it on the list. Because if
Oh,
you're
I
doing
like
it
that.
in the span of 3 weeks, then you do it. We also I have a really good friend who is super organized. She told me what she does monthly to keep her house
Yeah.
clean.
Yeah,
Like
I need to
we
get a copy
brainstormed
of
with some
yours.
friends. Yeah, you could totally get a copy of mine. It's not a big deal. It's not copyright or anything. It works well. So then we did that, and then that was draft one. So we printed it, laminated it, Office Depot, $1.75, worked well. And then if something wasn't working or something needed to change, instead of an expo marker, I used a Sharpie. And a month later, I printed the new draft. And we
Cool.
just slowly worked it out until it was what we needed.
I
So,
like it. That's a very engineer approach, but I do really like it and I see how it could be so beneficial. And I also wonder, like, for households in transition like mine, I really had the best intentions, and I may need to still follow through on this, but we had a plan for making a summer division of labor where, we do have Rory home. But after August, Rory may never be living at home again because their plan is to have an apartment. Um, following this year, and of course they're always welcome to come home for periods of time, and we'll have them home for Christmas break, but this may be the very last like block of time. And so I think it's really easy to kind of like, and we have a school aged kid who's home right now, but this is the first summer. So like I do think you could have the conversation within your household too of like, oh, do we swap out the summer one for the winter one, or vice versa. Because I do think that could be an interesting conversation as well of like what changes need to be done throughout things. Like we're going through groceries a lot faster because we have 5 people in the home instead of 3. um
oh
and
yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that,
like, I think you have to make it work for you. And you also have to, like, you were talking about how hard it would be to sit down and do this. Maybe you don't bite off more than you can chew. Maybe you just start with a daily. Maybe you just start with a weekly. My weekly cleaning schedule, though, is what really saves me. I
do
will
you
say
do
that.
like do you do like one task a day? Because
Well,
I've started trying to
it's
do
like 3 to 5 tasks a day, but
that.
they are yeah, because it has to be taken care of. So let's just kind of go through it. Like Monday. Mondays are the front of the house. So that is clean up the mail catch-all,
Oh yeah, valid.
wipe down the table. Do you know how many times you can go to the end of a weekend and you look over and there's still crumbs on your table somehow? I don't know.
Hmm.
There's crumbs on
Well,
my table. I wipe down the table like 7 times a day, but on Mondays, it gets clean. There is not a
yeah.
Target receipt on there. There's nothing. It is clean on Mondays. I um, clean my stovetop.
Yes.
Splashy splash from of some pancake batter or something like that. No. No, it's not splashy splash on there anymore. It's gone, actually. And then I will usually vacuum the living room rug. Now we have a dog, so we vacuum multiple times a week. Try to vacuum multiple times a week. What
But
always
there's
happens is a vacuum on Monday.
I was gonna say, yeah, you have the consistent one. See that so I do have a little version of that where I every Monday go through and deeply like sweep, mop, and vacuum. Um, and like that's a big thing. And then on Tuesdays, I like try to clean the whole kitchen. So like, yeah, I see what you're doing. You're doing like very specific tasks, which I really like because for me, it's like try to clean the kitchen, but what level does that look like? And that may be different. Like right now, I have to clean my oven, and
Well, and that may
that's
be
not a
completely
thing.
dependent on how your child naps.
Yeah, that's
But
valid.
if the bare minimum is definitely getting done, the bare minimum is definitely getting done. Another thing that I always do is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, my husband is always in the office. And when I was working too, that meant that there were 2 people in the office, somebody at daycare. Like we were not here
Yeah.
at all. So you know what? You know what room I clean on Tuesdays? Bathrooms.
I was about to say you can spray it and leave
Because
it.
you can put bowl cleaner in the toilet and then go to work.
Yep.
Come home, scrub it, flush, done. You can spray the shower, pull the curtain back, walk away for 8 hours, and then rinse it off. Like those are the things. But if I don't do it on Tuesday morning, my husband knows too because it's on the load bearing wall. He goes in to get a coffee, a little cup of coffee to put in the espresso machine, and boom, Tuesday. What can I do while my coffee is brewing? I can go put some toilet bowl cleaner in the bathrooms. It's not going to wake the baby up. It's a super quiet task. Let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I do like that. I like the functionality. Like I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, that actually doesn't work because I have to clean the bathrooms usually at night because my husband works from home and we're all home all day. But like again, just making sure that it works for you is a really big deal, because I
Which
do
is which
see.
is why it has to be specific to you, but putting it on the wall, like, that makes the biggest difference because I don't have to wake up and think, what am I taking care of today? I have to wake up and think, what day is it today? And if you can't answer the question of what day it is, you're probably not in a stable enough place to do this. Like, if you wake up and you think it's Wednesday and you start on Wednesday's task and then you realize it is Thursday, maybe you cut yourself some slack and you catch up on the weekend.
Yeah, or you ask for help. I mean, I think that's the opportunity to ask for help. um wow, oh, I really like this, and I like the I just really like the term, like, load bearing wall. I don't know why it makes me giggle. But it is true. It is a really good idea. I think we do. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm really going to put a lot of thought into this about, like, visualizing the mental load, because sometimes for me, and I, I'm not articulating this well. I like the idea of just at the end of the day, or as you're doing it, writing down what you're doing, because I had an opportunity on Sunday to, like, get an hour and a half away from everyone and, like, sit down with my laptop and sit down with my notebook and go through and, like, write a to-do list of things that needed to get done. And those were all the extraneous things, like, oh, I need to make rose petal jam before the rose petals go bad, like that kind of stuff. But it's not the daily tasks. And I have a hard time sometimes communicating. Like last week when I was sick, I didn't know and really couldn't even, like, mentally process to tell my family what it is I normally do during the day that needed to get done. And so it wasn't until there was a mess all over the floor that I was like, oh, yeah, I try to spot mop after every meal, because otherwise then the peanut butter sticks and you have to spray it and leave it, like that kind of
Well,
stuff. And I think being able to have that written down, even if you keep it to yourself, maybe you don't put it up on the wall, but just to keep yourself kind of organized a little bit, would probably make a big difference on those days where there is kind of the chaos happening. Would probably be
well,
helpful
yeah,
in
if
and of
you've
itself.
already thought about something, don't make yourself think about it 300 more times before the year is over.
Yeah, that's
Think
valid.
about it once
I
and
really like this.
think of how much brain power you'll have.
I really need that. I did just get, did I tell you how funny this is? This is the perfect antithesis to everything you're saying. So at um I don't know, I was out with our mom when she was here, and I was doing, like, kind of organizational stuff, because for the summertime, like, we're doing, learn your lowercase letters and practice writing those, because that was something the teacher identified, those types of things. And so I was getting some of those, like, they have little, like, they're clear, like, lamination things, but you can take papers in and out of them so kids can write on them with dry erase things. And I grabbed a couple for myself because I was like, oh, meal planning, this is great. I can just stick one paper in there instead of constantly printing it out and do it with dry erase markers, blah, blah, blah. Well, I apparently in the same store also just got myself, like, a daily planner dry erase board that, is just for that. And I was like, for meal plans. And then I sat down 2 weeks ago and I did meal planning on two different dry erase boards, one on my fridge and one on the sides of my cabinet. And we had two different meal plans. And I was just like, this is why. This is why you have to kind of put the work in at the beginning instead of at the end. Because what had happened was I looked at the refrigerator and goes, oh my goodness, my meal plan isn't there. I wonder what happened. I'll sit down and write down my meal plan. And I had a lot of crossover because I'd obviously already thought about it. But there were some things where I was like, I need to go and look at the freezer, what we have. And it's like
See, and think
I
about
had
how,
moved it.
like, it's funny, but it's also a sad, sad waste of your
Yeah.
efficiency and your
I was about to
energy
say
that's already limited.
it was
Like,
like a waste
you
of half
could
hour of my
have,
life.
like, forget spending that half hour, like, extra half hour with your kids. You could have had that half hour in a bubble bath.
Oh, don't say that.
I mean, it's just like, or, if you if you spend less time having to communicate to your husband what you need help with, then things get done and you guys get more time together.
Yeah. And your time together isn't spent having a
Nagging.
conversation about what needs to get done, which can come off as
Mhm.
nagging or can start conflict. Or you end up with, my husband and I have had this happen so many times where it's like, I needed you to take the trash out. You didn't take the trash out. Now, instead of sitting down with me at, 10:30 and watching one episode of something before I'm exhausted and go to bed, I now have to wait for you to take the trash out. And then, oh, yeah, we remembered it's trash day. So now you also have to do it. And now 15 minutes has passed and we don't have time to watch TV anymore because I'm going to bed.
Right, like think about it. So, we all know my background is in science. I used to work in a chemical lab. And when you work in a laboratory, in order for your laboratory to keep their license, they have to have approved methods that are called standard operating procedures.
Ooh,
And you
SOPs.
have to follow them in order for your science to be reputable. Okay?
Yeah.
Think about how annoying it would be if instead of handing me a piece of paper with the standard operating procedures on them, someone stood at my elbow and told me what the next step was every 5
Oh,
minutes.
see, okay, that's a perfect metaphor because I was just thinking about how much I hate turn by turn directions. Like if my husband
Yeah.
won't like just put it in the GPS, he's like, "Oh, I'll just get you there." And I end up spending half the time being like, "Are you paying attention? Do we need to turn here?" Like
Can you
and it
imagine how that would make you feel if that was living in your house and you didn't know what was going to be asked of you on Saturday morning, or you didn't know, or I mean, that's what we're doing to ourselves when we don't plan
yeah.
our weeks ahead, because you might wake up on a Wednesday and like you have set yourself up all week for Wednesday to be like a big cleaning day has to get done because we've got company coming this weekend, and you're not prepared because you didn't sleep well or whatever. There's so many things, especially as parents, that are outside of our control. Baby wakes up with a fever, emergency pediatrician appointment, all of these things that just pile on. And you can have the capacity to deal with that, but not if you are your own worst enemy by like
Yeah.
constantly waiting to give yourself and anticipating like something else is going to happen, blah, 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 blah. Like at
And
the end
even
of the
in the
day, like
mental
you can work together as a team because everybody in that lab knows what those standard operating procedures are. And everybody is working together. It doesn't matter who's making more money or who's more responsible for this or who's signing the paper at the end of the day. Like, obviously, everybody thinks it's important because it's their job. And
yeah.
in your house, in my house, like, it's our job to take care of our house. It's our
I like
job to make sure there's food in the fridge. It's our job to make sure that people have clothes that fit them that are clean.
Yeah. Well, and I like that a lot because even in like when we're talking about like corrective family action or like family intervention, one of the very first things we go through and have a conversation with is what are the clear and consistent expectations you have for your children. And so going through and having clear and consistent expectations for your home is not only going to lower the anxiety and the conflict, but honestly, you're working that muscle that you're then going to keep using. It probably lowers conflict not only between you and your partner, but between you and your children as they join the team for the household. If you're still staying with that clear, those consistent things that you're communicating. I love that. I really do like this. I had no idea where you were going with load bearing walls, but I really like it.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think it really helps. I personally have found that, like, for me, it's enjoyable, but it's enjoyable for me and my husband in different ways. So we're very different people. We're very different people. So I find it is enjoyable because I know when to stop. Like, I know when I have accomplished my task.
yeah.
So if I clean the bathrooms and then I want to sit down and read the new book that came out today, done. I have
That's a
accomplished my task.
that's a gifted
Now
kid
there's
problem.
there's some days where we have a play date coming out on Thursday or whatever, like that kind of thing. So like I know when to stop. I also know I can also use it to motivate myself to be like, okay, come on, it's not going to take that long. It always takes you about an hour. I try to keep my tasks down to things that can be done in about nap time, so an hour to 2 hours, because
Yeah.
let's be honest, like some days you just can't clean the bathroom while baby's up. Some days
Yeah.
getting a load of laundry done, is as much as I can do kind of thing. And so, and that's just being realistic. You're just setting realistic expectations for yourself, and then you're having grace for yourself, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But it also helps my husband because my husband is a perfectionist.
Oh,
And there
yeah.
are times where if the kitchen table, for example, is cluttered and chaotic and has been for a while, and it's a Friday afternoon or whatever, then we can take care of that. We can get ahead of that or whatever. But if there are things that he knows that we as a team are accomplishing or will accomplish or we are taking care of regularly or whatever, then it allows him to have like an actual metric for like how we're doing. Are we in crisis? Are things getting done? Like we have a lot going on with his work right now. And so there are some things slipping.
Yeah.
Like, like there's times in your life, summer starts, kids come home from school, things get crazy at work, holidays, visits, multiple grandparent visits in a row. Like it's a whole thing,
Yeah.
you know,
No, I like
but
that. And I could see how that would help, like even just with, like you said, mom guilt and anxiety, and having, I like
yeah,
what you say about having that
it's a
stopping thing. And
metric.
I make the joke about that's a gifted kid thing, but there are times where like I will get my tasks done for the day, but I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I can't forget that I need to do this. Oh my gosh, I can't forget that I need to do this, that I'm not resting at all. Like
Right.
all I'm doing is planning the next day. But if it was written down, and sometimes I do that. I just get up and I write it down of like, this is what I'm doing tomorrow. And then I can actually rest. So getting that out of your head so you don't have that constant conversation with yourself. I like
For
that a lot.
me, the biggest game changer for that was when I made the daily list and I put the after bedtime closing duties on it.
Yeah.
Because I could not rest after bedtime because I would pick up the living room toys and then I would realize the table was dirty and then that would lead me to the mail and then I have to sort the mail and then that reminds me I need to call somebody else. But of course I can't call somebody else because it's at 9 p.m. So I have to put that on my list for the next day. So I get in
Yeah.
my phone to do that and it just keeps spiraling. But
Yep.
on our closing duty list, it's feed the dog, load the dishwasher, fold the clothes. Every day I do a load of laundry, and so the laundry gets started, the laundry gets dried, and then for the final thing, it's fold the clothes. That doesn't always happen. I have a laundry room. I can shut the door. It's fine. Um, but you know what I mean? Like it's get to a certain point and then stop. If there's mail that needs to be taken care of, it will get taken care of on its day. But
Yeah.
you have to prioritize rest as well. And I can't rest if I'm looking around and thinking of all the things that need to be done. But if I look around and I think, yep, there's an appointment for that, it's going to happen.
It's gonna
Not right
get on
now,
there.
but that's an appointment. Like, it helps me so much.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I am
Tiny
grateful
pantry
that you
load bearing
shared this.
wall.
I'm gonna need you to send me that. I need I need a copy sent to my house, please.
I need your list. I mean, that's like a real thing though. Like I built mine off of everybody else's, so
Yeah,
I'll
that's
totally
very
send you
true.
mine.
Okay. Well, you're a good mom and you're a good organizer.
You're a good mom. You are a good organizer too.
Sorry. I didn't I couldn't accept that compliment.
You can organize things. You can.
I can. I fall into the
You are
trap
super
of
organized with appointments. You're super organized with your animals. You're super organized with like all sorts of stuff.
it's
You just
just
might not have a specific day that you clean your toilet.
that's true. That's very true.
You gotta play to your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. At least everybody in my house gets fed. I there are some days where that's my biggest win. Like everybody got to eat today.
Put it on the daily task list.
There we go. So then I can check it off. Blammo.
For real.
You're a good mom.
Love
You're a good
checking off
encourager
things.
too. Bye.
You're a good mom. Let's go.